Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a real big pleasure to have Trevor Wilkinson with me on the sofa.
Thank you.
We've been friends forever.
A long time. A long, long
We
time.
met last century, and we actually did projects together as well.
Yes.
And the reason for being here is we want to talk a little bit more about the later stuff you are doing.
Thank you.
People know you from your fantastic hardware. I mean, one of the, the interesting things is like you did the roller nut that Fender licensed, or you had contact with the man himself who was the father of this guitar.
Yeah. Yep.
And this is, I would call it a fake 54.
An echo of a 54.
Yeah. So, what, this is something you've done just,
Well,
just for yourself.
basically, a long, long time ago, when I was in my factory in Anaheim,
Right.
a friend of mine who was building guitars before the Vince Canetto era at Fender. I knew a lot of guitar builders in the area around Anaheim and Fullerton.
Sure.
And this gentleman was a guy called Bill Antell, who is very famous. And he came in with that body one day and he said, look, I'm experimenting with making distressed guitars. This is before the huge craze of distressed guitars.
Right.
He says, I'm making this guitar and I've made this. This is one-piece swamp ash. It's got all the markings of a 54 and blah, 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 blah. And he said, I want to give you this body because you've always been so helpful to me with hardware
Yeah.
and all kinds of things. So this is my gift to you. So I said, well, that's very nice. Thank you very much. And I've had it with me for all that time since sort of like this is about 1987 or 88 or
right.
something. And then when we were doing guitar experimentation, if you like, I just said, I'd like to create my own sort of 54 replica, if you like. And it's a neck that I made, and it's a body that Bill made, and he finished it. And I just wanted it to look like it looks. And it's as close as you're going to get without spending 90 grand.
Yeah, and you know, if you look at this, it looks pretty authentic. And the thing is, this goes back before the big trend of having distressed guitars.
Yeah, it does. And I don't condone the fact that it's got a Fender logo on it because it's not a Fender. And the reality of it is we know in our industry now, only Fender can make a Stratocaster. They can only make a Telecaster, and Gibson can make a Les Paul. Everybody else can make a version of it, but really, it's you got to respect trademarks. But you know as well as I do, because with your 61, and you know your 61 tells you what a real slab board Fender Strat should sound like with an older body, and that to me tells me what a 54 should sound like with a one-piece swamp ash body and a big chunky neck on it.
Yeah.
And so, because we know in ourselves that all these things matter to the end sound, so if I want to do what I consider to be the first pickup, which I've called 54-55,
Okay.
then if I put these in that guitar, I'm probably going to be as close as I can be to making a pickup that will do what our audience expects it to do.
Of course.
And so that's why I did it.
So
basically.
54, 55, we know that the Strat was introduced in 54.
Yep.
So the first 2 years in the pickups were kind of the same style of pickup, or why do you call it 54, 55 and not 54 to 59?
Because it changed.
Okay.
It didn't go all the way to 59. You know, as we talked about many times, you know, I was very, very fortunate to be 10 minutes away from the G&L factory and was befriended by Leo Fender, and he would tell me anything I wanted to know, which was just fantastic.
Of course, nice.
So I'm telling about, okay, so you did the Strat, and, you know, we know Freddie Tavares had a big hand in it, Bill Carson had a big hand in it. Leo Fender was not a guitar player, but he used guitar players for his ear and his sound and everything.
Of course, input, yeah.
So my research tells me that Leo Fender, or anybody in the Fender company, with a single coil, they were chasing 8,000 turns. They were obviously scatter winding, hand winding, whatever you want to call it.
It was not consistent.
And it was not consistent
Yeah.
because you had your foot on a
Machine.
basically a
Brake.
sewing machine,
Yeah.
basically a sewing machine switch, and you had these wonderful ladies, Hispanic ladies who the workforce of and they're kind of doing this, and then they're watching a counter. And then the counter gets to sort of like 7,450, and they go, "Oh, I better stop in a minute." And then they woof off with a foot, and it's too late. It hasn't gone to 8,000; it's at 7,600, you know. And the next one, they go, "I'll try and get a bit closer next time."
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not belittling these ladies; these are wonderful, wonderful workers. And today now we've got people who are talking about scatter winding, and you've got Abigail Yarra who comes into the Fender Custom Shop. I think maybe now one day a week or one day a month. I don't know. But I think what people forget is first of all, I don't do scatter winding. And the reason I don't do scatter winding is I think it's my job when I'm selling you a pickup that I give you consistency.
You're right.
And it sounds crazy, but most individuals who are building pickups one-on-one,
They do it by hand.
they do it by hand,
Right.
but they're not in a rhythm.
Yes.
They've got an idea of what they want to do. But if you go back to it and you're thinking that you're building 150 pickups a day, you ladies in a line, you're going to get a rhythm going. You're going to become nearly like a machine. You're going to be pretty damn close at that, you know?
Right.
It's only the windings and also the tension, because they used to put masking tape around their fingers.
Not
And
to hurt them.
yeah,
Yeah.
now this is going to create heat, and heat is going to thin out the
Wire.
the foam bar, the
Yeah.
heavy foam bar insulation,
Right.
and so that's now going to change with that's going to make the wire longer. So it's crazy. So when you do the research, you get into it, you just go, right, what would Leo have been doing when he was making this pickup? And it was probably started in 1953 or somewhere like that.
Sure.
So he would have been going, okay, I know about the fibres because I've been making the broadcaster pickup, the Telecaster pickup, and so I'm going to get these fibres, but now I don't want it to go into a plate like a Telecaster. I want it to go into a pick guard. And did he know he wanted 3? I don't know about that time. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't.
Yeah.
But he's got the fibres, so he puts the fibres together and he goes to the bin to pick out the magnets, and the bin that he goes to will be the magnets he's using in the broadcaster Telecaster.
Sure, because they've been around.
Because they're just in that bin. They're
Yeah.
just there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They're 197 thousandths in diameter, not 3/16 of an inch, which is what nearly every Stratocaster pickup today is done with, unless you change it for a reason.
Okay.
But then he went to that bin. So this is my 5455 with 197 thousandths magnets. If you want it in metric, it's about 5 mil.
Okay.
So every single thing you do to a pickup will create a different tonality. It will hear a different resonant frequency, and it will give it a voice. And the place you put it in the guitar will give it a different voicing. So this, I think, and we'll drop a hint here that we are doing a sound demo upstairs in Electric 2.
Electric Stage 2. It's what is the time? 3?
Electric Stage 2 at 3:30, I believe.
Yeah, 3:30 upstairs.
And we have a selection of guitars that I've put together with all these different models of pickups in. And we have a great guitar player who can demonstrate these.
Sam.
And as you know, he's using your Amp 1.
The M1, yeah.
And he's got a couple of pedals. And
He can show.
it's just amazing how all these pickups, which are basically the same, we say, bill of materials, create all these different tonalities, and you can create the sounds of players who were famous for playing that certain guitar or that certain year or in that certain genre of music. And I've learnt this over, I've been building pickups a long time, but I've always concentrated on hardware. I'm known for hardware. I understand that.
Right.
So I have to try really, really hard for pickups because I've got a lot of competition making pickups. I've got a lot of competition making hardware.
Yeah, sure. But this new R series, I can tell. I played myself. I tried them out. It's the next level. But compared to like our friend Kloppmann, this is manufactured in larger quantities, and it's the way you work. It is consistency designed.
Yeah.
You know, the human factor is to be analyzed, to understand what it takes to create a tone, and then the next step is how to get these parameters in a consistent process so you can have one pickup exactly sounding the same like the next one. That's the same challenge that I have with my amp.
Yeah, pretty damn close.
Yeah.
So it takes consistency. So it takes a process.
Right.
You know, Andreas, absolute genius when it comes to pickups, and he will listen to a guitar and he will reproduce that as he has done for you, for your guitar.
Yeah.
And that's great, but that's not, to me, that's not maybe not what all my customers want. My customers want to know that if I buy this pickup, I will sound like this.
Yep.
So therefore I have to be genuine about it and say, well, I will make it the same for you every single time. So the reason I brought this was we were talking about the first pickup that came along.
Yeah.
After this, the little change that was made went from the size of the magnet.
Okay.
Nothing else, just the size of the magnet. But when you change the magnet size, you change the whole shape of the pickup.
Of course.
And we've had this discussion before.
Yeah.
And whether people will agree with me or not, but I'm going to make a statement now. And when you think about it, you probably will agree with me. Pickups sound the way they look. So the physical characteristic of a pickup can be deciphered, if you like, with the shape of it. So after this pickup was made, the magnets were changed to 187 thousandths, which is 3/16 of an inch, which is 4.8 millimeters. Mm-hmm. But that would have reduced the actual coil size.
Yeah.
Because they were still chasing 8,000 turns. And throughout their history, if you go through all the specs of Fenders, 8,000 turns, 8,000 turns, 8,000 turns, but they probably never achieved it. They probably got 7.6, 7.8, 8.2, 8.1. I don't know, you know, but we do that. So what I did was I did what I considered to be to explode the myth a little bit. I calculated all the K-ohm resistances of a range of pickups from that time, from that era.
And then you made a middle of it.
And then I actually divided it by the number of pickups that I was listening to. Yeah. And that's where I came up with the actual spec of being a 5.5.
Yeah.
And, you know, in this instance, we do not do reverse wound reverse polarity, because nobody knew about that in those days, really.
Didn't exist.
And so we do these, and we actually hand dip them in air dry nitro lacquer.
And not wax.
And not wax, no. There will be people that say, well, you're doing that wrong because Fender used wax. Not at the beginning they didn't, but the reason I like to do the hand dipped in the air drying lacquer is that I don't solidify the coil with wax like under vacuum. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't become a solid lump of copper wire. It actually still breathes. It still has. So the lacquer will soak into the coil, and you know we have a timer and we have a viscosity, and we leave them in there for a specific amount of time. And generally speaking, is you jiggle it about until the air bubbles stop coming out.
Okay.
And then when that happens, we take it and we
dry it
and wire it.
Yeah.
And we stick it on a thing and we let it dry.
Yeah.
And we let it dry until it's dry. And we found that now gives us that lovely open sound that you get with an old pickup.
50s, yeah.
But it's still a new pickup.
Right.
You know.
And so we're talking black bottoms. I mean, this is like
it's vulcanized fiber.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. And so that goes on for a few years, and there's slight subtle differences. And then all of a sudden, 1965, Fender gets sold to CBS.
And here we have
and
the
this
grey
is
buttons.
basically what you would find in a 65 to 67 kind of Strat. And why has it got a grey fibre? Because they couldn't get hold of black fibre at the time. There was no other reason for that, you know. So the people who go, "Oh, grey fibres sound better than black fibres," sorry guys, you're living in a dream world. But grey fibre was available, so they did it. But the top fibre is still black.
Who cares?
But the big difference when this came along was CBS. It changed from foam var, heavy foam var, to plain enamel, which is 0.0003 thousandths of an inch thinner with the insulation. And it also was machine wound. Because CBS put machines into Fender because they were trying to get the consistency like I'm trying to get.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of changes went on at this pickup.
Yeah. And even the machinery process changed the tone.
Yeah.
So all these factors matter.
All these factors matter.
Yeah.
This is your Stevie Ray Vaughan era.
Yeah.
And when Sam does his demo, he does Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of like licks, and everybody goes, "That's Stevie Ray Vaughan." That's amazing. So that's the reason that I brought those two pickups along, because that is, to me, that is a major change. And again, even with the insulation on the wire changing ever so slightly, there you go with your physical size again.
Of course.
It's different again.
Yeah. So that's the Strat pickup.
That's the Strat pickups.
And this
Yep.
is a humbucker.
So yeah, this is what most people will call the Holy Grail.
PAF patent applied for.
PAF patent applied for.
And it's like the set level design.
So one day, a friend of mine who actually worked for me was wandering around Santa Ana swap meet, and he comes across an old guy selling tubes and condensers and capacitors and Bakelite knobs and all kinds of things in the second-hand market, and it turns out to be Seth Lover. Himself. He'd retired. He was doing things for his own interest. It was his hobby. He'd retired. And my friend John said, wow, he said, my boss has got a machine that is like the machine you used at Gibson. Right. And it's a machine that I bought second-hand for $150. And I bought it because it looked just like the machine I'd seen in the pictures of Kalamazoo, before Gibson moved. Right. And so I bought the machine for $150. But when I got the machine, it was massive. It was like this wide. It was actually an armature winding machine is what it was. Yeah. Anyway, Seth says to John, I'd love to see that machine, because he'd long gone from, he'd already done his stint with Fender after doing his work with Gibson. I'd love to see that machine. So John said, I'm sure Trevor, welcome you and what have you. So one Wednesday afternoon, Seth Lover comes wandering in and sees this machine, and he goes, well, that's the machine that we used at Gibson. Exactly that machine. Well, I mean, it might not be the same part number, but it was made by the same manufacturer from the same year. Yeah. And I said, but this is massive. Yeah. This is not like a little pickup winding machine. This is like this. Yeah. He said, oh yeah, we used to wind 6 coils at a time. Ah. So I went, oh, right, okay. And he said, yeah, we wound 6 coils at a time. I said, so obviously they weren't scatter wound. He said, no, we never did scatter winding. We may have done scatter winding to make a prototype, but we'd never done scatter winding for production. Mm-hmm. So there we go. And now we've got these 6 coils spinning round with the plain enamel wire. Yeah. And it's running through tensioners with leather to give it the right tension. Yeah. But they never ever got the tension right all the time. And occasionally the wire would break.
Because there was too...
Because it gripped it. So it snapped like anything. Yeah. So their solution was to stop the machine, was to pick up the wire and just solder it together a tiny little bit.
And then continue.
And then continue. But then our friends, the management, came in and went, hang on a minute, this is a lot of wasting time doing this. Yeah. So they said, oh, if it breaks, don't worry about it, just keep winding. Okay. And then at the end of when you've wound the other 5, they go in a box, and that goes on the end of the machine. And then they said, well, what are we going to do with that? And they said, well, wind it. And they go, yeah, but we haven't got the winds, we don't know where we are. Yeah. And they said, oh, that's all right, just wind it till it's full. So this is where you get the anomaly now of like guys listening to PAFs, and they're trying to find a PAF that may have a mismatched coil in it. It may be an overwound coil, it may be the correct coil. Yeah. It may be 2 correct coils, it may be 2 overwound coils, it may be 2 underwound coils. You don't know. So again, I'm not going to go trying to find every 58 I can get my hands on, listen to it, measure it, and try and guess what's in it. I said to Seth Lover, write down what you actually make a PAF like. Yeah.
What he wanted to do. In the perfect world.
In the perfect world. Yeah. So here we have it, in the perfect world, and I've reproduced that. And I did all this pickup thing because I wanted to make pickups in America for OEM sales, because my hardware sales were massive, as they still are today, but I wanted a one-stop shop for American-made stuff.
Yeah, and here's the pickups as well.
And so now we're here. Now we're here. Yeah. But the really funny story, and I must share this with you, and I think we've got the time to do it, is, I, again, fortunate, I knew Leo Fender, I met Seth Lover, and the one guy that I wanted to meet was Les Paul. Yeah. Okay? So I find myself on my 60th birthday, several years ago now, on my 60th birthday in the Iridium Club in New York. And it's a Monday night, and Les Paul is playing. And he does 2 spots, 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Okay. Matt Smith, you know Matt Smith.
Yeah, of course.
So Matt Smith knows the doorman on the club, and he goes in and he says, "I've got Trevor Wilkinson here. He'd love to meet you." And Les says, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah," and he wants to talk about guitars. Great, fine. After the second set, backstage, we have to sit down with Les.
Nice.
So this man is so gracious and so welcoming, and we're talking about little inventions that I've done, inventions obviously that he'd done, massive inventions that he's done. But he's really, really interested.
Yeah.
And so the conversation was there, because I said, look, you've got a line of people out there, they're all wanting you to sign CDs. It's now sort of like 11:45 or whatever it was. We better call this a day, but thank you very much for your time. And then as we got up to leave, I said to him, you know, if you think about it, Les, you've never played a Les Paul. I said, since 1956, you've never played a Les Paul. And he looked at me and I thought he was going to deck me. I thought he was going to like wallop me. And he went, what do you mean? And I went, well, you stopped playing him in 1956 when they went from the P90 to this.
Yeah.
Now this, according to Seth, was the biggest disappointment in his life, because he'd worked all that time to make you a single coil sounding humbucking pickup. So you always wanted a single coil pickup but no noise.
Yeah.
And that's what this is.
Yeah.
And I said, but you didn't like it. And he said, no, that's true. He said, I didn't like it because I went low impedance.
Yeah, I mean, his sound is so clean and
Exactly,
clear.
exactly. And that's the mistake I think that people make with PAFs. They've got this PAF sound in their head, which is probably Gary Moore, something like that. But the reality of it is this sounds like a telly.
And that's the thing I always say is like a Les Paul with PAF should sound like a telly on steroids.
Correct.
And not like that muffly fat thing that just.
No.
I was never excited about that quality.
No.
And this is why I'm in love with like the old pickups.
You've listened to this,
of course, and I'm very excited about this pickup.
Because we compared it to a Real 58 last year, didn't we?
Yeah. We were backstage here, actually in Mannheim.
It was here.
Behind the stage, and we had a quiet room, and we took guitars and we compared it. I think we had that original 59 Les Paul.
It was a 58 or a 59.
It was a
59.
59. It was that best sounding 59 that I ever had in my hands in my whole entire life. And we had that versus this in one of your Tokai guitars.
It was a Tokai, yeah, it was.
And the 59 was still the better guitar because it was an old guitar.
The wood. It was the wood.
It was the wood, but the pickup, the character was there.
Yeah,
I was.
Yeah. So I was really pleased about that. Because
and you know, I'm frank. I'm frank.
Well, I know that. We've known each other for a long time.
Yeah,
you don't bullshit and mince words.
Bullshit is.
We're over that phase. So this is why I wanted to do this pickup. So it's 2.5 inch magnets, not 2 1/4. Like today. They're not ground. They're not smooth. They're rough cast. The wire is correct. The bobbin size is correct. Everything about it is correct to what Seth wrote down and what he told me, because he quite simply said, you've got to have a nickel silver cover, you've got to have a nickel silver backing plate, otherwise you do this to the pickup. Yeah. All those little things that is a fact. As we've come to know now, with everybody making pickups and everybody experimenting and doing all that. So that's it. So, there's your three kind of classics, if you like.
Yeah.
That
of the new,
is the nucleus of the R series pickups.
Yeah, the R series pickups, and I mean, I play them and I'm impressed. That's all I can say, and I want those.
Because I think the first time we met, you were actually looking for a pickup for your Strat because it was broken.
Yeah.
And I think I found you one or something, or I told you.
We have done. You found stuff. I found stuff.
I truly can't remember.
I was at his workshop in the UK. We've met so many times. We have samples going back and forth, and
we're just two crazy guys.
Yeah. Hey, Trev, thanks.
Nutters.
Thanks so much for doing this and giving us all.
If people do have time, 3:30
upstairs.
Let's do a demo of
Sonic,
all the current range of pickups.
Yeah.
And hopefully they can hear the sounds, they can hear the differences, they can hear. I've styled them after mentor and student.
Of course.
So if you're a Hank Marvin fan, then you're probably a Mark Knopfler fan.
Yeah.
You've got Eric Johnson, who is totally unique.
Yeah.
You've got Richie Blackmore, we've got that. And then we've got Hank Marvin, Mark Knopfler, we've got Dickie Betts, we've got everybody that, to me...
I played Dickie Beck's guitar.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Okay, then.
So I know what time it is when it comes to that.
Yeah, great. Yeah. So we're going to do that 3:30 in electric room.
2.
Electric 2.
Level 1 upstairs.
Level 1, correct. Yeah. Just right by your booth.
Just next to
Yeah.
the Blue Guitar booth.
Okay. Have we waffled enough now?
We've
We bored everybody to death. They're probably falling asleep. I think that gentleman's gone there, but never mind. His friends will tell him and he'll be able to watch the video.
Yeah.
Are we really this boring?
Oh, good. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much,
yeah.
Thomas.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Big
Tom.
play.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.